The hot issue for this week has centered on the canceled high-level talks between the two Koreas. Last Sunday, the respective governments of South and North Korea had agreed to hold a joint high-level meeting on June 12th in Seoul. According to Presidential Office correspondent Eoh Jin-joo, President Park Geun-hye held an emergency foreign affairs and national securities meeting at Cheong Wa Dae to discuss the specific agendas for the upcoming talks, the first of its kind in 6 years. The day after, North Korea scrapped the high-level talks less than 24 hours before the scheduled meeting due to disagreements over the ranks of chief negotiators on both sides.
Arirang News.
The National Assembly held an interpellation session over a 4-day period beginning on June 10th, followed by an official inquiry. The inquiry dealt with a wide range of topics such as economic democratization, which was a key issue during the June provisional session at the National Assembly. Discussions ranged from ways to achieve the Park Geun-hye administration's proposed creative economy to measures aimed at preventing aggressive and unfair business practices by large conglomerates. Reporter Lee Ji-yoon wrapped up the parliamentary discussions over key legislation supporting economic democratization.
Lee Ji-yoon, Arirang News.
It was a violent scene of tear gas.
In Turkey, tough police suppression of anti-government protests has escalated tensions in the country. The Turkish police officers clashed with protesters in Istanbul's Taksim Square. As a result, violent anti-state riots continue to intensify in Turkey. Amid concerns from the international community, reporter Kim Yeon-ji covered the escalating situation as Turkish police used tear gas and water cannons against the crowds.
Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
Says the latest
in business news, according to the Korea Exchange, on June 12th, Korea will be maintaining its emerging market status after failing to achieve the advanced index based on the Morgan Stanley Capital International Index, or MSCI, which divides the world stock markets into 3 categories: emerging, advanced, or frontier. Reporter Jee Myung-gil reported on this story and the effects it will have on the domestic stock market, as well as the reason behind Korea's growing pressure to become a member of the Advanced Market Club.
Frontier markets.
Let's start this morning with preparations for historic inter-Korean talks set to start this Wednesday in Seoul.
High-level officials from the two Koreas will meet in Seoul on Wednesday for a 2-day meeting to discuss a wide range of commercial and humanitarian issues.
Since taking office in February, South Korea.
The big news last week was the breaking story of North Korea's sudden proposal for inter-Korean talks. Global attention focused on the Korean peninsula as the South Korean government accepted the offer.
Which was the venue for the last ministerial talks.
Well, I think the reason that everyone, including the South Korean government and the South Korean people, were excited about the planned inter-Korean talks that were supposed to take place on Wednesday was because it was the first government-level talks between the two Koreas within the last 6 years. As you know, the relationship between the two Koreas was quite frosty during the last administration, and I guess everyone was thinking that the inter-Korean talks could have served as a test bed for President Park Geun-hye's so-called trust-building policy.
네. 내일은 열리지 않는다. 내일 회담은 무산이 됐다. 이렇게 밝혔습니다. 조만간 통일부 대변인실에서 통일부의 공식 입장을 밝히고.
우리 김병지 박사님 그 토픽을 바꿔야 될 것 같아요.
An emergency development unfolds 20 minutes before the 8 p.m. news. The busiest person at this moment is Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee.
뺄게요. 죄송해요. 대통령 빼고 바로.
Jenny, I'm done.
20시에 브리핑한대요.
20시 브리핑한다.
네.
Sung-hee quickly moves to the news center desk after she delivers the message.
Well, initially I was supposed to make a studio appearance for our 10 o'clock primetime news, where I was planning to explain the who, when, where, why, and what of the government level talks that was supposed to take place on Wednesday. Now, that includes who's coming to the talks, where will it be held, what will they discuss, etc. But now all that, what I've prepared, became useless because the talks have been called off. So I went over to our anchor Jee and I suggested that I connect live from our Arirang News Center on the breaking news.
We begin this evening with some very disappointing news. On the eve of what could have been the first inter-Korean talks in years, the two Korea has called off their plans at the last minute. Now, for more on why the plans were canceled, we now connect live to our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee at the Arirang News Center. Now, Sung-hee, why the sudden change of heart?
Jee, what a disappointment. The two Koreas canceled their plans after reportedly failing to reach an agreement on who would lead their respective delegations. Now, they have been wrangling over the issue throughout the day after South
With
Korea
less than 24 hours left before the landmark meeting, North Korea calls off the high-level talks. Sung-hee's mind races as she lands the big scoop and is able to deliver the news to the world.
More details on what was behind the sudden cancellation. I'll keep you updated on the developments. Jee?
이거 소리 좀 셀 수 있어요?
With the Ministry of Unification briefing taking place alongside the news, the story needs to be constantly updated. Based on these new developments, another update on the breaking story needs to be made during the 8 p.m. news.
이런 일이 있을 수가.
카메라팀 내려가셨는데?
전화할게요.
According to 저 그림 있나요? 다음이에요.
아니요, 그림 좀 덮을 수 있어요.
있어요, 그림?
Well, reported earlier on the cancellation of the inter-Korean talks, which is set for Wednesday. And we know that there was a briefing from the ministry, and our Hwang Sung-hee, our Unification Ministry correspondent, has the latest. Now, Sung-hee, tell us what the ministry said.
Yes, like I said earlier, Seoul's Unification Ministry spokesperson Kim Yeon-ji just held a press briefing to
In fact, the specific agenda for the next day's high-level inter-Korean talks had not been confirmed by the Unification Ministry until 8 p.m. As a result, reporter Hwang Sung-hee had been anxiously waiting for the next update.
All right, Sung-hee, thank you very much for that update. We'll keep in touch. That was our Hwang Sung-hee reporting live from the News Center.
수고하셨습니다.
Well, we were all prepared to go. We had our camera ready. At the Grand Hilton Hotel in Seoul, which was supposed to be the venue for the meeting. And we had another cameraman going to the Inter-Korean Transit Office in Paju, where the North Korean delegates would have to pass to get to the Grand Hilton Hotel. And also, I had other technical things all ready, as well as the things that I would cover. I was preparing what stories I should cover at the Grand Hilton Hotel. I had everything set up, but then the news broke at, I think, around 7:35-ish, right before the 8 o'clock news. So yeah, I was very, very disappointed to hear that the inter-Korean talks will not be taking place.
It's unfortunate that this happened, but what's done is done. She will have to get ready for the next story.
녹취도 올렸어요, 거기 아티클에.
Less than 1 hour remains before primetime news.
어떻게 된 일인지 why and 그리고 뭐 이제까지는 뭐
어떻게 어떤 스티킹 포인트? 네, 이게 스퀘어 하면서 하는데 이게 one of the main sticking points다. Looking forward. 그러면 질문 3개요. 오케이. 이거 앞으로.
피디님, 질문 3개로 줄었어요.
네. 4번 뺄게요.
땡.
Sung-hee scraps the story she was working on before and begins work on a new draft. As an experienced reporter, she knows she has to write fast as time is always against her.
1-0 is your
이거 스케치
final
없죠?
score.
이건가?
스케치 없어.
So far this
단 한
season.
장도 없어요, 스케치?
없어.
The North. Many are hopeful about the prospects of post talks at the ministerial level, but scrap the plan when the North
Reporter Hwang Sung-hee has remained ever so calm covering the breaking news which could potentially shape the future of inter-Korean relations. However, she faced another tough situation.
Guys, what disappointing news. Seoul's Unification Ministry said just a few hours ago that the North called off Wednesday's inter-Korean talks at around 7 p.m. That's right, Sean. Initially,
Even through the weekend, Sung-hee, along with the news team, has been working around the clock to gather the latest stories from the Special Office for Inter-Korean Dialogue and Ministry of Unification. Everyone got busier than ever now as the agreement for dialogue collapses between Seoul and Pyongyang.
수고하셨습니다.
At that moment, I really couldn't think a lot about the next day because I was already overwhelmed with the things I have to do since I had to write new reports. All the things that I've prepared was useless. So after all that was finished, I was like, okay, now what? What do I do tomorrow? But really, being at the Unification Ministry, we always have regular press briefings at 10:30 in the morning, and the spokesperson usually comes to where the reporters are to give background briefings on the current issues regarding North Korea. So I just expected another new development on the current situation to get me busy the next day.
The press room at the Ministry of Unification remains in a state of emergency the next day, following the canceled inter-Korean talks.
시험 통화가 안 됐다고 하는데. 아, 그럼 10시 쓰지 말고요. 아, 네네, 오케이. 네.
As she predicted, Sung-hee sees that the majority of other journalists are waiting to be updated by the Unification Ministry's next briefing. However, she suddenly receives an urgent message that says the scheduled briefing has been canceled. Reporters are feeling tired from the constant stream of unexpected events over the last few days.
선배, 10시 뭐지? 반 브리핑 안 한대요, 오늘. 아니면은 선배 12시에 짧게 전화 연결 같은 걸 할까요? 그럼 그거 질문을 그래도 3개로? 아, 오케이. 알겠어요, 선배. 넹. I think I'm quite well trained in terms of dealing with these emergency, unexpected situations because I've been covering the shutdown at the Gaesang Industrial Complex, and back then I didn't know what to expect and nothing went as planned. So what I've learned is just try to keep calm. You really have to communicate with your camera team, with the people at the office, just let them know what's happening, and yeah, just keep calm and move forward.
As she makes last-minute changes to her report ahead of the scheduled live phone connection, a new update pops up showing that Unification Minister Lee Ji-yoon is on his way to attend an emergency meeting.
진재 씨, 그거 혹시 무슨 얘기하는지 들어볼 수 있어요? 아, 그러면 아니 저 지금 통일부인데.
Instinctively, Sung-hee runs straight to the media room to check on the available footage.
새로운 남북 관계를 위한 진통이군. 알겠어요. 감사합니다. 이거 지금 올리면 12시는 안 되겠죠? 그럼 2시?
Following a live news appearance the day before, Sung-hee continues her in-depth coverage by reporting live via phone today. It's all part of efforts to improve her story and provide the best news to a global audience.
네, 여보세요. 네.
The phone connection has been set.
For more, we have our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee on the line. Sung-hee, fill us in on the latest.
Yusan, Seoul's Unification Ministry says North Korea seems to have cut off
its inter-Korean channel at the border village of Panmunjom on Wednesday, just days after it was reopened. The two sides usually test run the hotline at 9 a.m. every morning, but the ministry said there was no response from the north.
Sung-hee, it looks like the two Koreas are back to square one. How is the South Korean government responding to North Korea's sudden change of heart?
Well, Yusan, the South Korean government has been
As the announcements about the canceled high-level talks between South and North Korea become headline news, all eyes are on the Ministry of Unification and what Seoul's next move is in this delicate diplomatic situation.
This morning to question the intention of its partner. Back to you. Well, reporters at the Unification Ministry who's been covering North Korea for the past 10 years or so, they tell me that you always have to be on standby when you cover North Korea because you never know what to expect. And they may suggest to hold talks. It may be this weekend or next weekend. But I'm not really worried because if I can get a chance to cover the inter-Korean talks, because that kind of chance doesn't come around every day, I think that would be a really good experience for me. I would have a lot of fun covering it. So yeah, if I could cover the inter-Korean talks, I don't mind giving up my weekends, nights. I don't really care.
Being a correspondent for the Ministry of Unification is a highly demanding job, especially since the Korean peninsula is in such a volatile and divided state. No one knows for sure what will come next following the unexpected cancellation of the joint inter-Korean dialogue, but you can be sure that Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee will be there to cover the story and give us the latest news updates.
Welcome to the Global Green Growth Summit 2013.
Finance. Developing and
diffusing green growth theory and practice. It's a treaty-based organization with 18 member countries. All of these things require financial resources, and the conditions of the world economy makes.
Distinguished representatives of governments, we are going to be discussing here today the harder to finance it.
As the President of the Assembly said in his keynote address a few minutes ago,
that program now had unleashed the potential of the village.
The financing mechanisms, some have been mentioned already.
The second plenary session at 1:30. So ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your lunch and I will see you promptly at 1:30. Thank you.
With water tariffs, 55% of the income has to be used for environment.
Hi guys, I'm standing at the venue for the Global Green Growth Summit.
So welcome to this session on financing green growth plans focused on energy.
For the next 20 years.
I think one of the biggest threats to the stars is
Thank you very much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Scott. Thank you. We won't change the pattern of investment globally. We won't upset.
How did this concept of green growth really come about?
In fact, what we used to call green, I've been involved in. I think it's the most exciting venture anybody could be.
Business and innovation and courage.
an address from Senior Secretary Cheong. We're looking forward very much to seeing.
Very pleased to be here to attend. Internet infrastructure deliver high quality products to their customers, delivering their.
Finally, I want to say that
Thank you all very much, and would you please join me in thanking our panel this afternoon that concluded our